What if the biggest reveal in Sullivan's Crossing Season 4 wasn't Maggie's decision at all, but the fact that almost every major character is heading toward a future that looks completely different from the one they imagined? At first glance, the finale felt hopeful and emotional, giving several storylines a sense of closure. But the more you think about it, the more it feels like the writers were quietly setting up something much bigger for the future. Hey, what's up everyone? Come back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, when most fans talk about the Season 4 finale, the conversation usually starts with Maggie, and honestly, that's understandable. For years, she's been caught between different versions of her life, different expectations, and different paths that seem to pull her in different directions. But what stood out to me this season wasn't simply whether Maggie would choose Cal or Liam. The real story was whether she finally understood what she truly wanted for herself. By the finale, it felt like something had changed. For the first time in a long time, Maggie wasn't making decisions based on pressure, guilt, or what other people expected from her. She seemed ready to make choices that reflected who she actually wants to be.
But here's where things get interesting. Emotional clarity doesn't automatically solve every problem. In fact, I think the finale may have created even bigger challenges moving forward. Because knowing what you want and actually building that future are two very different things. And that brings us directly to Cal. One reason fans connect with Cal so strongly is because he rarely says exactly what he's feeling. Some of his biggest moments happen in silence, a look, a pause, a hesitation. That's what makes him such an interesting character. And after everything he's experienced this season, I honestly don't think he's ready to completely lower his guard. Not because he doesn't care about Maggie, but because he cares so much. He spent so much time questioning where he stands and protecting himself emotionally that pretending everything is suddenly perfect wouldn't feel realistic. That's why one of my biggest predictions is that Maggie and Cal may finally be moving toward each other, but the emotional scars from this season aren't going away anytime soon, and honestly, that could make their relationship even stronger.
Because the best relationships in Sullivan's Crossing have never been about perfect endings. They've always been about growth, healing, and learning how to trust again. But while everyone is focused on Maggie and Cal, I think there's another character that fans are seriously underestimating right now, Liam. A lot of viewers seem convinced that his story is basically finished, but I'm not so sure. Sullivan's Crossing usually avoids the easy path, and removing Liam completely would be the easiest option. His presence has already changed the emotional dynamics of the series. He's influenced Maggie's decisions, created tension, and forced several characters to confront difficult truths. That's not the kind of impact that simply disappears. The real question isn't whether Liam remains important. The real question is what role he plays next. Could he still influence Maggie's future? Could he become part of her healing journey in a different way? Or could the writers be preparing an entirely unexpected direction for his character? Right now, all of those possibilities feel realistic.
But beyond all the romance and relationship drama, I still believe the emotional heart of this series is Sully. No matter how much the show evolves, Sully continues to be the foundation holding everything together. He's the person who understands pain, sacrifice, and second chances better than almost anyone else. Even in moments where he wasn't the focus, his presence influenced nearly every major storyline this season. And honestly, I think that's leading to something much bigger. Because what if the next chapter isn't really about romance at all? What if it's about legacy? Think about it. Maggie is trying to figure out where she belongs. Cal is trying to figure out who he wants to become. Liam is searching for his place in a changing future. And Sully appears to be entering an entirely different stage of his life. That's not just relationship drama. That's a story about identity and purpose. And that leads to one of the biggest theories heading into the future. What if Maggie is slowly being prepared to take over Sullivan's Crossing itself? At first, that idea sounds obvious, but the deeper you look, the more significant it becomes.
Taking over the crossing wouldn't just mean managing a place. It would mean fully accepting a life she once tried to leave behind. It would mean protecting the community that helped shape so many lives. And most importantly, it would mean finally deciding where she truly belongs. That's why I think the next chapter won't simply ask whether Maggie loves Cal. It will ask whether she's ready to build an entirely new future. And those are two very different questions. Now, let's talk about the three biggest unanswered questions after the finale. First, can Maggie and Cal actually make a relationship work now that many of the obstacles are finally disappearing? Because sometimes getting together isn't the hardest part. Staying together is. Second, what role will Liam play moving forward? Because regardless of where fans stand on the love triangle, his choices can still affect multiple storylines. And third, can Sullivan's Crossing itself survive all the changes happening around it? Communities evolve, people change, and every season seems to push the crossing closer to a future that looks very different from its past. And here's a theory I don't think enough people are discussing.
What if the real story of the next season isn't romance at all? What if it's legacy? Almost every major character is facing questions about their future, their purpose, and where they belong. That's why I believe the next season could focus less on shocking twists and more on emotional consequences. Difficult conversations, hard decisions, characters finally being honest with themselves. Because that's always been where Sullivan's Crossing is at its strongest. Not when it's trying to shock viewers, but when it's making them feel something real. The Season 4 finale may have closed one chapter, but it also opened the door to a completely different future. A future where Maggie must decide what kind of life she truly wants, where Cal must decide whether he can fully trust his heart again, where Sully's legacy may become more important than ever, and where the crossing itself could be forced to evolve.
Personally, I don't think we've seen the biggest surprise yet. And honestly, that's exactly why fans are already looking ahead to what comes next. So what do you think? Is Maggie really ready for the future she's been searching for? Can Maggie and Cal finally make things work? And could Sully's legacy become the most important storyline in the entire series? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, theory discussion, and review, don't forget to subscribe for more Sullivan's Crossing content. I will catch you in the next one.